We have had long way with Yvonne, my dear friend and colleague, and Anna for already I don't know how many years, not many years, some years. And I am glad to see two nice friends from the Palestinian community, the head of the Palestinian community in Sweden, Mr. Raoul, and Mrs. Raoul, the head of the Women Union. I appreciate your presence here with all the audience. This is, I think, my third day in Stockholm, and I'll spend another 2 or 3 days, including talks to some people in hospitals, and to speak about the role maybe of mental health practitioners, how they can help, what they can do, what are the mental health conditions of the population in Gaza Strip, if they have any advices or recommendations to say or things to offer. But I'm also meeting some official people from Sweden. Sweden was all the time an supporter to Palestinian people and to the organization where I work. I am a psychiatrist. I came back to Gaza after my medical education in the year 2000. And then I wanted to become a pediatrician. And after finishing 1 year of internship, then I joined the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. And in 2001, I was, in the pediatric emergency department, seeing children every day and doing usual work, until suddenly I saw an announcement about a training on mental health. And that's for physicians, for psychologists, social workers, nurses, and for many people. And then you remember 2001 was the second intifada, and we were seeing a lot of children. I was seeing them, especially the ones who would come in the evening, with some unexplained, cries, screams. Sometimes you think maybe it's an ear infection. Sometimes maybe it's something wrong with their abdomen, but it was really unexplained. And these were like 5, 6, 7 years old. Anyway, I thought, why not to join and go to attend those classes? And that was a program that was organized by the Gaza community mental health program. It was led by Iyad Sarraj, the late psychiatrist and the human rights defender. You know the name very well. In 2000, like 1 year later, I decided just to stop thinking about pediatrics, and I felt how much it's important, the field of mental health, to the Palestinian people for different reasons. I don't need to say how we were looking at things in 2002 or 2003, but we obviously see how things are in 2025 now. That's 22 or 23 years later. Well, Sweden is very important, as I said, and I keep telling everyone the same story, and it might be boring because many of you know, but it's very important to say that the whole idea of providing mental health services in the way that we do at the moment was something that was cooked or planned in Sweden between 1988 and 1990. So Iyad Sarraj was in a meeting, in a conference in Uppsala, and he was talking about his concerns. What can I do in order to help children and women and those who are victims of human rights violations back in the 80s? It was the days of the first intifada. And after the conference, two very nice gentlemen introduced themselves. I am David Henley. I am a pediatric neurologist. And I am Henrik Pellen. I am a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And we have some ideas that we would like to talk with you about. And as the late Iyad used to say, the idea of establishing GCMHP was in the kitchen of David Henley, when they told Iyad about the importance of community mental health practices, and that you live in a very difficult conditions. A psychiatric hospital will not be the best or the optimum place or space to help children and families, but you need to think in terms of community mental health. In some countries they call it social psychiatry, in some countries they call it community psychiatry, in some countries they call it community mental health. But these are different, similar, we could say, titles, but they mean the same thing. You live under hard conditions, the environment is there, the psychological issues is there, the family challenges are there, and your body is there. So you cannot really help people with just the drugs or medications. It's not that simple. You need a comprehensive mental health intervention. You need a multidisciplinary team. You need a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, and a nurse. And in 1990, in April, IAD started the first community mental health center ever in Palestine or even in the Middle East, where we have multidisciplinary team who are looking after children, women, and adults. Well, with time, it proved to be very nice. People started to come, to show up. 1992, we opened the second center in Khan Younis in the south. And in 1996, we opened the third one in Deir el-Balah in the middle areas. And that was not enough, because we thought even having 50 or 60 people are not really enough to help people. Because as we said, with time, there were more impacts. Things were getting more and more difficult. And the idea was, okay, let's train others. Let's train people working in primary healthcare. Let's train teachers at schools. Because we want to involve as many people as possible. Let's involve parents. Tell them how they can help their children. That's why we established a training department. And that training department has a very important high diploma program that began in 1997, which I joined 5 years later in 2002 when I saw the advertisement on the door of the Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis. Of course, with time, we know that things were never getting easier and easier. We were running from one disaster to the another. And perhaps the very famous ones were the large-scale military offensives that began in 2008-9. And then in 2012, 2014. And we know these attacks, there are all the time numbers of people who got injured, numbers of people who got killed, numbers of houses that were destroyed, numbers of people who got displaced. But it was never as what's happening at the moment, you know. And GCMHP as an organization was all the time thinking how we can help people, how we can help children, and all with the time we had some sort of crisis response plan. What can we do in order to help people? And those crisis response plans, they were really successful in many ways and in many means. And we have accumulated a huge experience in the field. Experience that we really didn't look for, but it came by itself. We were forced, obliged to help our people who were under the bombardment, under being exposed to multiple repetitive military attacks, and their only guilt is being Palestinians staying on their land. That's their only guilt. And let's keep in mind that 2/3, about 70%, 65 to 70% of the population in Gaza Strip are refugees. They are already people who have endured decades of being displaced, who are waiting for a solution, who are living very harsh circumstances, who one way or the other developed in some sort of aid. And I tell people that in 21, 22, 23, figures were clear about the living conditions in Gaza Strip. 53 people of the population were living under poverty line. 33% were already under deep poverty. How many population was then? 2.3 million people, 2.2, 2.3. How many young people below the age of 18? 48%. That's more than 1 million children. So when October 2023 began with those massive attacks, the repetitive attacks that are now going for almost 2 years, 1 million children were exposed to those atrocities among the whole population. And then when we speak about reports, earlier we already knew that there was a report that was issued by the United Nations in 2012 saying that Gaza is not going to be an inhabitable place by 2020. And why is that? They speak about power supply, they speak about water, they speak about food, they speak about everything. Of course, you know all of those stories. But now, people ask and they say, well, what are the psychological implications of what's going on? And as I was talking to Anna a little bit ago, when I was explaining what we were doing, that's on a podcast that I look forward to see you hearing it or listening to it. So, as a therapist, as a mental health professional, as a psychiatrist, I usually tell people, do not really try to intervene when the attacks are happening. Wait until there is safety, wait until people feel secure, wait until the staff feel that it's safe to go out, safe to help people, wait until the beneficiaries or the clients or the people feel that it's safe, and then go and help. Because otherwise it doesn't make sense, you know. It doesn't make sense when you go to tell a person, calm down, things are going to be fine, and they hear the jet fighters roaring in the skies. It doesn't work like that. But this time it was different. This time it was extremely massive, extremely huge attacks, very large scale from day one. And tens of thousands of people got displaced from the first day from different areas in Gaza Strip. And 2 or 3 weeks later, we were discussing, should we wait? Can we wait? And we said, no, we cannot wait. We cannot really wait. We don't know until when we are supposed to wait. We have clients who had medications that they needed to receive. We had people who were in psychotherapy, in talk therapy, and we cannot really turn our back to them. We need to continue to do our duty. But then, late October, from where can we work? Our main building in Gaza City was not reachable. I'll put it like that. Of course, we knew months later that it's gone. It was a very nice 6-story building that had our community mental health center, that had our training center, that had our research capacity area, and our public relation unit, and all of our activities, the main ones. But we had our Khan Yunis center still operating, and we had our Deir al-Balah community center that is still operating. And we thought, okay, let's try to work from there. Little by little, in the beginning we thought, at least let's continue providing medication. And then a few days later, we thought, okay, let's have a crisis response plan put in place, and let's try to work as much as we can. And now we have about 120 staff that work for GCMHP, including 102 who are working in Gaza Strip. They are split or divided between the 3 geographical locations, which is Khan Yunis, Deir al-Balah, and Gaza. What do we see? And then I'll speak about our intervention. First, you can see it from the first thing. Well, let's keep in mind that anyone who was living in Gaza after the year 2000, for example, and this includes children who are like in their 12, 13, 14 years old, they have memories or recollections of previous attacks. I mean, there was, of course, 2014, that was a big attack, but there were another attacks that happened in 2021 and another attacks that happened in 2022. A lot of the attacks reach the media, but there are sometimes some smaller attacks that happen overnight that no one really reports about. It becomes something that happens. It doesn't require that much, it doesn't get that much attention. But for the people, it really gets attention. It's really important. Those little every now and then attacks that we're using or that were happening before. Some of those attacks caused relapse to clients. For example, you live in an area that is in the very eastern side. Your house was destroyed or demolished in 2014 or in 2021, and you have a few children. On average, we have 4 to 5 children per family. So one of the children start to show signs of trauma. Maybe night terrors or nightmares, maybe physical pains, maybe problems with attention at school, maybe bedwetting, and for one reason or the other, they managed to get to our services. They can by a chance be in a public meeting where we are in the community, or they can be by a chance a group of people who were visited by our psychological first aid teams. Or it could be by a chance that you were looking at Facebook and you found one of our sponsored announcements. Or it could be someone that thought, okay, that you received a text message. If you have any psychological concerns, then talk to technical people or professional people from GCMHP using this toll-free line 1-800-222-333. So sometimes people were calling, okay, my son has this problem or my daughter has this problem, and we would tell them the possibilities that we have. We can just continue to talk over the phone, or you can just come to our community centers. Or if you can't come to our community centers, maybe we will come and visit you, provide a home visit. So what happens is that those children recover, they start to go back to normal life. But then an attack during the night happened, a couple of bombardments here or there. But they were loudly heard because they live in that geographical area where bombardment happen rather frequently. And guess what happens? The mother or the father, they call the second day. They call our toll-free line, or they call the clinician, the therapist, telling, look, my son or my daughter, they got these symptoms back. What should we do? So one of the things that we noticed that recollections, memories will continue to be all the time there, and sometimes you help people go on with their lives and they recover and they start to function well, but sometimes something that triggers the return of that memory will send them back to showing symptoms, to having difficulties, and then they will need our help again. So I say this to remind everyone that before October, most of the population of 2.3 billion people already knew what the bombardment looked like, how it might impact people, and the level of destruction. But no one, of course, felt or thought that within 2 years, the international community will allow the death, the killing of more than 64,000 people. More than 150,000 people got injured. The number of children who got killed are more than 17 or 18,000. Today we have more than 39,000 children who lost one of their parents. Today we have about 17,000 children who lost both of their parents. They don't have any of their parents there. We have hundreds of children who are amputated. I don't remember, it's 400 or 500. And I don't remember the numbers because every month you look at reports, the numbers increase. Yesterday alone, 109 people got killed according to the Ministry of Health data. And we know that the number of people who die directly or indirectly because of this war is a lot more than the announced. The Lancet said last year, I think in 2020, early 2024, that they expect the indirect death to be 4 to 5 times more than the reported numbers. They then thought 186,000 people maybe will die because of consequences of what's going on. What consequences we are talking about? Health system. The health system in Gaza Strip was already facing a lot of difficulties. It was not developed enough. And then the availability of skilled staff was not there in all the disciplines, especially the very delicate, like cardiosurgery. We never had the chance of having cardiosurgeons who are operating like with open heart surgery. We could have do the stents, for example, the catheterization, but open heart surgery, no. When it comes to cancer treatment, when it comes to radiotherapy, it was not there. Only certain types of chemotherapy were already in Gaza Strip. I mean, the whole sector of health was not developed that much. So people knew what what war looks like, how the bombardment will impact them. And we know how children, they look terrified, scared, difficulties in sleeping, sometimes night terrors, when they wake up in the middle of the night screaming and they can't remember what they dreamed of, or just nightmares when they can recall that what they saw in my dream is the thing that I have seen or experienced myself. Or sometimes they have bedwetting, a very nice, lovely girl who could be like 12 or 13, or a boy who considers himself a man who is like 13 or 14. They wake up in the morning and they find their clothes wet. How shameful they feel. What can you talk about their self-esteem, about their confidence? It's all gone, it's not there. Especially if it happens every day or every second day. Especially when you are sleeping in a tent, on a mattress. And maybe you don't have another set of clothes. That's the only clothing that you have. Or you have another set of clothes, but you are definite that your mother or yourself, you will have a big difficulty in just washing your clothes. How do you feel about that? And then the question is how the parents are going to react to that. And we tell parents all the time, you can react in a way that complicates things, that traumatizes children, that make them more vulnerable, make them more afraid, more shameful, then more isolated, then more depressed, then more angry, then more aggressive, and you enter that endless cycle that you end with children completely traumatized and not able to just think of any normal life. Or you can just talk easily to the child, try to calm the child down, tell him that this happens every now and then, that we have seen this before, that it happened to your cousins or to your friends or to your colleagues, and this is part of the reaction that happens to the trauma, and we need together to work on that. And you still have some active involvement in helping your child get rid of that bedwetting and perhaps help the child gain their confidence back, or the children gain their confidence back. But who can lead you to understand these things? That's the role of a mental health professional. So when we send a team of a man and woman, usually our teams that go to the field are men and women together in pairs, because they go to the tents, they go to the destroyed houses, and there's something that Yvonne said that I will never really forget. It's something that resonates all the time in my mind. Well, they were visiting us, I don't remember after which war, I think after 2014, and they were visiting people in the north of Gaza city, maybe in Jabalia or in Beit Hanun. And she said something when she returned. She said, you know what, Yasser, we were invited by people to drink tea in the houses. And this is something that we feel a little bit strange about, that still people can offer such hospitality, that they invite us in and they accept us in. But I couldn't allow myself to go in, because you don't have the regular house structure in those houses. It's all almost destroyed. All the doors or all the walls are almost destroyed, so you see everything in your eyes. You see the whole house, you see the whole family, you see everything. There is no privacy that's there, so I couldn't allow myself just to go inside. So I was meeting people from outside and talking to them, and that's it. And this is something that we need to keep in our mind when we work with people, especially in times of atrocities, in times of adversities, in times of disasters, that those clear settings and boundaries between privacy, confidentiality, the lack of privacy, the lack of confidentiality, sometimes they just disappear. And if you are not aware of them, if you don't think about them, then you cross some barriers that you shouldn't really cross. And this is something, again, that our staff try to do all the time. So these pairs, when they go to the community, where do they go? Where do they go? They go to tents, they go to displaced people, either in tents or in partially destroyed houses, or if those people are lucky, they are still in their I think it's 15% now, what is remaining of housing in the whole Gaza Strip. And then they provide basic things. They ask, how are you guys? What are you doing? How are you feeling? How are your kids doing? Were there any differences, changes, any psychological impact that you feel, any distress that you have? And then they give some simple instructions on how to deal with the anxiety, how to deal with the worries, how to help children that come with specific complaints, with specific difficulties. And if they feel that there is a certain problem with one of the children or the other, they just refer them to go to our community centers where we have our experienced therapist. And if they don't come, we send our experienced therapist to see them in the field, which is just a tent or something like that. So last year, for example, we have seen more than 67,000 people. Among them, 7,000 who are patients who received medication or one-on-one session, but 60,000 who were seen in the field. Psychological first aid services reached 30,000 people, among those 15,000 children. And this was done by a team of, last year it was about 95 people who are working on the ground. And guess what? My colleagues, the team who are doing that, they live in tents, or they live in partially destroyed houses, or they were displaced once, twice, 3 times, and even more than that. And some of them have lost their beloved ones. And some of them were pulled from under the rubble. I have 4 colleagues, 4 female psychologists. They were all killed in their houses. They were doing nothing. They were just sitting in their houses. 4 got killed. The first one was somewhere in October 2023, and the last one was 2 months ago. And this continues to be the case. That's why when we work, also we think about care for caregivers, supporting the helpers or helping the helpers, or we call it sometimes in a more technical way, supervision. When we encourage the therapist to empty their cup before filling it again. Because when you go to the field, you need to have space in your heart, space in your mind, that you can take in all the negative emotions and informations and the stories that are brought by the people that you meet. But you can't keep taking things in forever. If you don't get rid of them, then you will be traumatized yourself. We call that secondary traumatization. But for people in Gaza, it's both primary and secondary, because the healer is the victim and the survivor at the same time. And you operate in that way. You wake up in the morning, you say goodbye to your children, to your wife, and you go to the work, and you are not sure whether you will be back to them or not, when you will be back, you will find them or not. That is the feeling for people who go to work. That's the daily experience of people who go to work. That's the experience of my colleagues who are still going to work until today. That's what I was feeling myself when I was for 6 months being in Gaza under that genocide before I managed to leave. That's how things are. So how can you do all of that? You need support. You need someone that can listen to you. And we do it in 2 ways. We do it through peer support or peer supervision, which means that the stuff they sit and talk together once at least each second week, where they have the chance to speak up what's in their mind and to get the support of their colleagues. Or we do it through some of the colleagues who managed to live outside Gaza. Because we have about 7 or 8 therapists who managed to leave Gaza, and now their main work is to provide that psychological support, to take all the negative, if we can do that, feelings, and to try to reflect on that and to try to help their colleagues continue with their life. The work is extremely difficult, but what makes things more difficult is the conditions on the ground. When you speak about thousands of trucks who are at borders that are not allowed in, and you speak about people being starved. So you speak about children who perhaps haven't eaten any yogurt for 2 years. Maybe they haven't had the chance of eating any fruit for 2 years. Maybe they had the chance to maybe eat meat 2 or 3 times throughout 2 years. And you expect them to grow healthy? No, they don't. Neither physically, nor emotionally, nor cognitively, nor psychologically, by any means. Even our cognitive development needs vitamins, our cells, they are a result of material, and part of that construction needs food, healthy food. That's why all the time tell our children to eat healthy. We tell ourselves to eat healthy. And we look at our food, make sure that there is less, there is better food. Let's not say something else, So that's what we do. So what do you think about a child who is now 4 years old, who haven't had any good meal for 2 years? And when we look at the pictures coming from Gaza, when you look at children who passed away in the hospitals because of malnutrition, and when you look at the international community reports that Gaza and the north is already under famine, and that it's going to arrive to the middle and southern area, and that happens, and still the bombardment that is going, that happens when the parents see with their eyes that their children are either getting pale, not growing, malnourished, not able even to do whatever they can do as child, not able to function normally, to play like other children, and they themselves feel like, hungry all the time. They would have a meal each second or third day, and sometimes they have to choose who is going to get that meal among us, They look at that, and they are at the same time exposed to multiple repetitive traumatic attacks. Can we speak about PTSD? Of course. It's a lot more than PTSD. PTSD falls short when we speak about such condition. Are they depressed? Yes. Are they frustrated? Yes. Are they angry? Yes. Do they feel isolated? Yes. Do they have many questions? Yes. Are there any answers? Not yet. Can anyone give answers? No. What's happening in the world? No one knows. Why people are watching in silence? There is no answer. What are the human rights that everyone talking about for the Palestinian people for the last decades? Where are the UN resolutions? Nothing. There is nothing. There is nothing. There are no answers. There are no answers at all. And at the same time, it's not only Gaza that is suffering, If you look at the West Bank, what's happening, It's a completely story that's going on and somehow forgotten because the attention is on Gaza. But there are some areas in the West Bank that have gone under the same circumstances that happened in Gaza. Jenin, for example. 1 square of Jenin that is not gone. It's gone. It's not there anymore at all. There are some displaced people, thousands of displaced people in the West Bank. They are living on rent now. Yeah? And we don't know for what will be the next, So, as mental health professionals, we try to help as many people as possible. We try to support the well-being of people as possible. Well-being in times of, multiple repetitive attacks, in times of starvation. It's really far beyond attainment. But do we give up? Can we leave our people to their fate? No. We cannot allow that. Cannot. My colleagues who are in Gaza, we tell them, if you feel that you are sick, you cannot come today, you are extremely afraid, don't come to work. Consider yourself not working for today. It's not a problem. But they keep coming to work. Because there is a sense of agency that they are helping their people. They have a commitment towards the community. They have a massive, huge ethical standard or value of the work that they are doing. And we continue to do our work. And our work also needs the support from the international community. That's why when the Palestinian Solidarity Group tell us we have managed to collect this amount of money, but people would like that money to go to children. Of course, it's always at least half of our clients are children. We are the only organization, by the way, in Gaza Strip, whether governmental or non-governmental or whatever, that provides specialized mental health services to children, which means that we can provide therapy to children who have mental issues, especially the ones that are related to the living conditions. We are the only organization where women who are betrayed, who are victims of violence, who are victims of violence against women or gender-based violence, they come and they find that this place, they feel the confidentiality, they feel the privacy, they feel the warmth, they feel the trust. They know that they can trust the organization. We are among the few organizations in Gaza that we go and when we put our best and we visit the houses or the tents, the doors are open. But people open their doors and they open their hearts at the same time. And as people in Gaza open their hearts, I am sure that a lot of hearts of Swedish people that are with us. And that's why your support, any kind of support, is all the time needed. It's all the time welcomed. And I'm really glad to see you here again. I don't want to speak more. And I'll give more time maybe for questions and answers or for a little bit to speak. Thank you very much.
Yes, maybe we can take one or two questions and the rest when afterwards. Anyone have any questions you want to ask?
Thank you. Do you have any centers still up and running in Gaza today?
Okay, thank you for the question. In Khan Yunis, we had to leave our community center in Khan Yunis, for example, in December 2023. And like people in Khan Yunis, we were all displaced to the south, to Rafah. In February, we managed to begin another center in Rafah. In May, that's we speak about 2024, people were ordered to evacuate also Rafah. So everyone had to run away. We reopened a center in Khan Yunis, but the new center is made of 5 caravans. It's not a building. We didn't find a building to rent. Or there were buildings, but the prices were extremely high because there were some international organizations that have more resources, let me put it like that. So we are operating from 5 caravans in Khan Yunis. 2 months ago, that area became extremely difficult, so we stopped working from there. But last week we returned back and we are operating from those 5 caravans. At the same time, we have a small part of a facility that is established by Bingo in Mawasi area in Khan Yunis, and we are working from there all the time for the last 1 year and a half. That's for the southern area. For the middle area, our building there, and by the way, our center that we were working from is burned and destroyed. The middle area, our building was, it's an old building, was partially destroyed. So we had to work from another building in Deir al-Balah that we rented. We worked there for 1 full year until we managed somehow to rehabilitate our main building and we returned to work from there. So the work in Deir al-Balah or the middle areas never stopped during the whole 2 years. The work in the south stopped for 2 months in beginning of 2024 and 2 months in maybe the end of 2024, something like that. For the work in Gaza City, that was the most difficult story because hundreds of thousands, they left Gaza in October and November. And we were not capable of finding even our community center because the place was difficult. So later in around March or April, we started to find another place. We looked for another place and we found a building where some organizations, including the Palestinian Medical Relief Society, they operate from there. So they have like some floors in that building and we rented another 2 floors and we are operating in there until now. So the 100 staff that are on the ground are divided almost 30 in each community center. But the main thing also that as a philosophy of community mental health, we don't only work from those centers. Our teams are all the time in the field. We have about 10 to 15 staff that are waiting at the centers to receive or provide therapy to the clients, but everyone else is in the field visiting the tents, visiting the displaced people, offering psychological first aid, providing some sort of counseling, etc., etc. So we are on the ground and we are functioning. And then I invite you and everyone to look for our Facebook page. You can see every second or third day there is a report about an event or something like that, and you'll find something that is really interesting there.
Thank you. We have one more question.
Just if you could tell us maybe more about who are you able to see while you're in Sweden? I understand you've been on radio and you'll be enough about it, but just so that you are able to both bear witness to what's happening, but also explain more about what is still possible to do and so on. So I'd be curious to know.
Thank you. Well, usually I like, when I travel, to meet three groups of people. First is the people themselves, okay? And this is my main interest, to see people, to tell them about, to bring the stories of Gaza. Second is mental health professionals, those who are either in academia or like clinicians. And that's why there is a meeting tomorrow in Stockholm and the meeting the day after in Uppsala. And then the third is officials, if there is a chance to meet officials. So, and of course, talking to people involves media, and the colleagues in Palestine group, Solidarity group, they have done amazing work arranging the visit. And that's why you heard the radio program today in the morning. There will be more articles, I think, probably today and tomorrow. I met people from SIDA, because SIDA supports the Gaza Humanitarian Program, and we have an application that is pending their approval. Hopefully they will accept it. And today I have met some people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was also another good meeting. And tomorrow I am going to the Parliament. I'm not sure who will be there, but we will see what happens. I mean, if a couple of people will show up, I'll be really happy. So that's what I try to do, just to bring attention to the situation in Gaza. And there is something important. Usually, when the atrocities are over, when the war stops, and when the genocide hopefully will stop soon, people think about many things, but they forget about mental health. Okay? They think, okay, let's talk about schools, let's build schools, let's talk about hospitals, let's send medical supplies, let's try to rehabilitate the infrastructure, let's try to think about housing. But mental health gets the lowest priority, and it's all the time, by the way, it has the lowest priority. But how can a child who is still traumatized, fear of death is still there, scared, doesn't sleep well during the night, how he or she is going to perform well at school? Yeah. So all the time, any recovery plan, whether it's yearly recovery plan or long recovery plan, it should have mental health services or MHPSS services as a major component of any recovery plan, especially in areas after wars. That's something that we know, everyone knows. But again, it's a question whether donors, when they start work, or policymakers, when they put the plans, do they take that into consideration or no? We know that all the time the visibility is important, so when you see what you do, it's different from something that is not seen. That's why we speak about mental health as the hidden ones or the unseen ones, how you can treat something or think of something that you don't see. So that's why it's missed. That's why we keep advocating for the rights of people who are mentally or psychologically suffering.
We have one last question.
What would you say will be the long-term consequences for children growing up right now? And would you say that the action of traumatizing is to some extent intentional by Israel?
Rafah city is gone. There is nothing there, just dust. How does that help anyone? It's just adding suffering to the Palestinian people. Beit Lahia, major parts of Beit Lahia and Beit Hanun, they're already gone. Who is that going to help anyone? Gaza, since yesterday, they announced the beginning of land operations. And from the last week, they were bombing the buildings, the towers in Gaza. I mean, bombing buildings, what is that for? So I think all that destruction just does one thing, deepen the suffering of the Palestinian people. So when the ceasefire is reached, we will wake up to find no Gaza Strip, no water, no housing, no tents, no nothing. And it will take ages for that to appear. In 2014, the first building that was rebuilt, 1 year, it took them 1 year to rebuild the first building, 1 year to start the Gaza reconstruction mechanism, the GRM it was called at that time. So I think one of the major things is that it's not just the suffering that is inflicted by the current atrocities, but what people are going to live with later on. And it's not only the memories that they are going to live with. It's not the loss of the beloved ones that they are going to live with. It's not the loss of property that they are going to live with, but also they are going to live the harsh conditions where you live in piles of rubble that reminds you every day and every night of the destruction that happened here and there. And that's why one of the main things that we keep telling people is that clean, which means remove the rubble. Make the environment look a little bit better. Try to invest in clean spaces, clean areas, safe spaces for the children, play areas for the children, and then offer protection to the children. I mean, children in Gaza are like children any place, They are entitled to be protected. They are entitled to receive good education and to have health care. As simple as it is. And here we are talking about children. We are talking about the very simple, basic things. So there is a long list of things to be done. There are many challenges that will be facing the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip, And on the other hand, we think a ceasefire should happen yesterday before today, last month before this month. But then there is a long journey ahead of us to help people heal, to help the community reconstruct itself, rebuild itself, not only physically, not only the materialistic part of it, but also the psychological part of it, the mental part of it, the spiritual part of it. And that's the more difficult aspect. Thank you.